Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Strategic Source webinar. This is David, your session producer, just opening things up. The topic, as you see on the screen, is how to significantly reduce shop supply expense with Imperial. And we'll bring on Doug Austin, CEO of Strategic Source, in just a moment to give a few opening comments before we bring on our guest presenter. Everyone, thanks for joining us today. We have a Q&A box that will appear on the lower right-hand corner of your screen as we get underway. So let's get things underway on today's topic. Here now again is Doug Austin, CEO of Strategic Source. And Doug, take it away.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine November day. Strategic Source has started the Innovative Supplier session back in June of this year, and I'm telling you, it has been widely acclaimed and received by our clients and prospects as well. We just came back from AICPA, a trade show where a lot of CFOs and dealers attend, and we had some comments there that the folks really appreciated what we're doing. And the intent of this series is to bring who we think are innovative suppliers to the table, to get them in front of our clients and even prospects. We tend to bring suppliers that we have worked with and have experience with across different expense categories. And as you folks know, there are about 130 expense categories on the automotive side, but there are also opportunities on the audit and recovery categories as well, those folks that can go back in and recover dollars that you've already paid out. And then finally, we also have some new revenue categories that we present on as well. So if you find this session today to be informative and helpful, if you have not attended any other sessions, I would encourage you to do so, because we've got a lot of very different topics from utilities to DMS to tax strategy. Next week, I think we have one on employment retention and recognition. So there's a lot of good content out here, and it's all really designed to do two things. We're in very uncertain territory right now as the dealer community. They're coming off a record year. We're trying to make sure that the dealers preserve cash to the extent possible. And because 2022 looks so uncertain with inventory levels the way they are, we're trying to help you identify cost reductions that can help you preserve and even improve profitability in 2022. So think of these innovative supplier sessions as satisfying two objectives: preserve cash, reduce costs. Now let me introduce Randy Pritchard. Randy is a Director of New Business Development with Imperial Supplies. As all of you know, we have some pretty strong relationships with suppliers that we've built up over the years. I can't think of any that have a stronger relationship with Imperial. As you know, too, we don't take any compensation from any supplier. We've never been paid by Imperial or any supplier, and that's not our motivation. But in our experience, when we've done pricing analyses, Imperial has always been highly competitive. In fact, as good as my team is on the price benchmark side, I would say Imperial is even better. They will come out and do benchmarking at the shop supply level that will be superior to ours. So I can't speak more highly enough of Imperial than I can today, and I'm proud to introduce Randy Pritchard, who's going to walk us through a very salient topic: how to significantly reduce shop supply expense with Imperial. So Randy, take it away.
Doug, thank you for the very kind introduction, and I will jump right into the presentation. So what we're hoping to go over today is how Imperial can help you significantly reduce shop supply expense. And so Imperial, number one, we represent low-hanging fruit for car dealerships, and we'll go into exactly what that means. First of all, we look to help you cut your supply expense by 20 to 45%. Number one in that area is significant cost of goods reduction, and then indirect savings and then lean process improvement. The Imperial program is easy. We do all the setup work, and it is free to test and free to implement. So we're going to start out with a poll question. So which of the, watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. This was a quote from what famous person? We'll give a couple of seconds to get some feedback from you guys.
And we ask everyone to take part by just clicking on the little radio button next to the answer selection, and then we will show everybody what came through.
All right, very, very good. We will go with what we have here. It looks like Warren Buffett is in the lead, but that's a logical answer. But interestingly enough, it was Benjamin Franklin. So I think that's a great, relevant quote. Watch the pennies and the dollars will take care of themselves. So supplier background. Imperial is the largest national distributor of fleet maintenance supplies in the United States. We distribute 1.7 million products. We were founded in 1958 and became a specialty division of Grainger in 2009. Imperial is very unique in this respect. All of our traditional competitors go to market with a commission route salesperson. Imperial, our secret sauce is we simply use technology to replace the need for a route salesperson and pass the savings on to our customers. We have been working in the auto dealer market since 2009, but in 2017 it became a focus of Imperial, and it is our fastest growing vertical market and has been since 2017. World-class customer base. Again, from 1958 to 2009, we focused on the fleet industry, and we really dominate that from a supplier standpoint. I like to say the best-run fleets in the United States utilize the Imperial program. At the bottom of this slide are a few examples. Penske, UPS, Federal Express, Coca-Cola, to name a few. Literally 19 of the top 20 fleets in the United States utilize the Imperial program. Since 2017, the list of our customers that you see above that line are auto dealer groups that have embraced the Imperial program since 2017. You should recognize most of these names: Sonic Automotive, Greenway, McClarty, Tesla, Holman, and a whole group of other highly recognized auto dealer groups have embraced the Imperial program. So at Imperial, when we start working with a customer, we take a very holistic approach. The first thing we look at are the cost of goods. We call this a total cost model. The first thing we look at are cost of goods, because that is generally what gets a client/customer's attention, is our ability to reduce their cost on product by 27% on average. The next area that we look at are transaction costs. A typical dealership that Imperial goes into will have about 6 different companies supplying product that we can eliminate. So transaction costs are something that often gets neglected, and procurement research shows that in a car dealership that processes a paper invoice, that processing that invoice, that transaction cost is $75 per transaction. So that's part of the equation. Our goal is to help you reduce the number of transactions, therefore reducing your transaction cost. And the last bucket that we look at is the inventory/cash bucket. Our program is designed to identify obsolete inventory in your dealership and remove that inventory in conjunction with your parts and service guys to identify it, remove it, and give you a credit for it. So that's the holistic approach that Imperial takes when we start working with a car dealership. Business-to-business selling spectrum. If you understand this, you understand how Imperial's 27% less on the cost of goods in either like product or in many cases the exact same product. So on the business-to-business selling spectrum, on the right-hand side, you have the traditional route environment. Our competitors there, a sample would be Work, Kent, Windsor, Fastenal, and our parent company, Grainger, that primarily go to market with a route salesperson. This is a very expensive model. about 30 cents on the dollar goes to support that route salesperson. So on the other side of the equation are the online-centric companies like Amazon, Uline, and Zorro. So over the past 10 years, there's been a huge shift from the right side to the left side. So what's driven that shift? Number one, simply cost of goods. The SG&A costs associated with the online-centric companies are significantly less than the traditional route sales and brick-and-mortar companies. So where does Imperial play in this business-to-business selling spectrum? We are a hybrid in the middle. And what I mean by that, our model is similar to our Amazon, Uline, and Zorro, as that it's online-centric. But where we are different is that our entire process is followed up with a dedicated account advisor to assist the end user. They are assigned, dedicated to individual accounts, and their goal is to help our program work with the end user. Our model, when it's put in place, we have something called the Scantel system, where we go in and clean label and organize the shop, putting barcodes on everything, and then we set up the process for you guys to order. The average order from Imperial at a car dealership is 10 line items. It literally takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes to scan and transmit the order with a mobile app, and then 10 to 15 minutes to stock the order. This whole process is backed up by our dedicated account advisor. This person or individual costs Imperial about 3 cents on the dollar versus our competitors 30 cents on the dollar to physically send someone in. Cost savings of 27% that we pass on to our customers. So if you get the business-to-business selling spectrum, it's easy to understand how we can be less on practically everything. So the first bucket is the cost of goods. So we do a forensic analysis. Doug's team does a great job on the front end looking at the high-moving items and everything. And there's some clients of Doug's that they see the data that he provides, and they choose not to go down the forensic analysis path. They have confidence in the first part. But for probably about half of the clients that we work with through Doug's organization, they want to take a deeper dive into a forensic analysis. So what I mean by forensic analysis, so we provide you up front with our pricing, then we take competitor invoices, and we go line item by line item crossing to Imperial. But then we take it a step further to identify costs that are hidden costs. In this particular case, on this invoice, there's a couple of hidden costs here. Number one, the route guy went in, and the shop foreman told him to take the TPMS sensors off of the order, and guess what? The order shows up and the invoice shows up with TPMS sensors, so now the dealership has to go through the process of returning those. Second item, small item, but a cost all the same, is a fuel surcharge of $6 on this particular invoice. So this is part of what our forensic process does. It identifies costs that are not apparent. So we take the invoice and turn it into an Excel spreadsheet that looks similar to what we're looking at here. In this particular case, on this analysis, with our competitor, the cost was $394. With Imperial, the cost is $279 for a 29% savings. This is what I call proof of concept. So when we did the forensic analysis and showed the 29% savings, this particular customer was motivated to come on board with Imperial. And doing a trend line is what I call proof of concept. So this is the trend line. Prior to Imperial, they were working with a company called Max Supply that was covering all the categories that Imperial covered. So this top line here represents the average spend per month with our competitor, which happened to be $4,100 per month. Versus Imperial, the average with Imperial was $2,200 a month, or a 46% reduction in spend. So how do we come up with the 46% reduction in spend? It's just what they spent prior to Imperial versus what they spent with Imperial the first year after conversion. So we go from a 29% cost of goods savings to an impact of 46%. So where does that come from? The primary driver for that is what Imperial calls the influence of the route salesperson. So all right, we got a very unique model. Imperial, we want you to have exactly what you need to operate and nothing more. The route model, they have a little bit different philosophy in most cases. They want to drive as much revenue out of the shop as possible. Typically speaking, we see about 15% fluff on average across the board. In this particular case, I think it's about 18% in fluff. So with the Imperial program, you order what you need when you need it. So the year prior to Imperial, this is a 25-technician dealership. They spent $49,000 with our competitor versus $26,000 with Imperial, or a $23,000 reduction in spend in the first year. So that's the first thing. Yes.
Randy, this is Doug. I just want to make an editorial comment here for all the listeners out there. When you think of shop supplies and some other categories as well, you can think of it in two different buckets: customer managed inventory, which is what Randy is referring to here, and vendor managed inventory, which Randy has alluded to as well. And, you know, in my experience, vendor managed programs can be very nice because you don't have to put any labor into it. But what my experience tells me is when we go out into the shop, you see a lot of full bins, and they tend to collect a lot of dust. And that means that when the route salesperson is having a bad month, he fills up your bins with stuff you don't need. So I just wanted to make that comment, and sorry to interrupt, Randy, but take it from there.
Doug, I appreciate your feedback, and as we go through this, I welcome your feedback. Very, very good observations. So we'll talk about the second bucket, and that's transaction costs. In this particular case, with our competitor, they had 135 invoices versus first year with Imperial, 51 invoices. That equates to over 80 invoices or $6,000 in transaction costs. If your cost to process an invoice is the average, which is $75 per transaction. So the time element is one of the first things, one of the obstacles that we have to discuss with customers. Is the first thing that's brought to our attention. Now, a lot of people that have been in a dealership in the fixed op side for an extended period of time, they understand there's a lot of time wasted in the dealership with the route supply model. With that, I like to take an analytical look at it, and for every $1,000 you spend with Imperial, you've got about a half an hour investment, about 15 minutes to scan the order and transmit it, and about 15 minutes to stock the order. So in this particular case, and then spending $26,000 with Imperial, they invested about 14 hours to generate that savings. So now I'll look at a return on investment. So if I take the $23,000 divided by the 14 hours that they spent in managing the Imperial program, that's a return on investment per hour of about $1,500 per hour. So that's a very healthy return on investment. And, you know, one step further, this size dealership, in this particular case, they purchase from us about once a week. That's 51 orders. As we dig into the supply channel and try to create efficiencies, we can ultimately reduce that number of orders. In this particular case, again, they invested about 26 hours to generate $23,000, or excuse me, 14 hours to generate $23,000 in savings. The only thing that this proof of concept does not quantify, a soft cost, is that's the amount of time spent with the route salesperson. And that varies for each dealership, but that is absolutely a soft cost that should be taken into consideration. Another poll question. So the NADA average operating earnings from 2017 to 2019 was 2.2. Basically, your dealership is, for every dollar they generate in sales, they keep 2.2%. For August 2021, what did the NAD report as the average operating earnings? We'll give it a minute for everybody to vote. All right, this is actually pretty cool. The results that we're getting. So it ranges in the poll from 21 down to 0.7. The actual number is 5.6 for August. So I want to put that into perspective. So for 2017, 2018, and 2019, the average was 2.2. So in the year of COVID 2020, the operating earnings went from 2.2 on average to 3.6, which was a 48% increase. So it's a huge increase during the year of COVID. And then from 2020 to August of 21, average operating earnings went from 3.6 to 5.6, or 155% improvement. So that's just, from our perspective, that's just crazy improvement in operating earnings. With that, what's driving that? One of the biggest drivers is simply inflation in the used car market, which inflation in the used car market is the number one inflation item in the United States today at about 24%. With that, with operating earnings being at 5.6 versus the 2.3 back in 2019, there's almost no one that believes these higher operating earnings are sustainable. Used car prices are not going to stay at an inflation rate of 24%. So this next slide is something that I stole from the NADA. It's called the CFO Answer, and basically they take savings and put it into perspective. So for every dollar in additional expense, the dealership has to generate so many more additional dollars to cover that dollar expense to produce an additional dollar of earning. So basically, for every dollar you spend, you got to generate so much more revenue to make up for that dollar that was wasted. So essentially, you take a dollar in savings, divided by the 2.2 operating ratio, and it comes up to $45.45. There's a couple of different ways that you can look at that. For every dollar you saved, it's the equivalent of putting $45.45 to the top line, or for every dollar that you waste, it's costing your dealership $45.45. So going back to the dealership that we converted earlier that spent $49,000 with our competitor, and they were able to save $23,000 with Imperial, the top line impact of the conversion to Imperial would have been the equivalent of $1,048,000 to the top line. So all those shop supplies can be low on the radar for the dealership revenue. From a dealership revenue and cost standpoint, it can have significant impact. So we talked about the cost associated, the cost of goods savings, reducing transactions, giving you credit for obsolete inventory. The next area that we want to talk about is what Imperial physically does when we go into the shop. We go through what we call a 5S process. It's a quality program. Our field service is going to come in. We're going to sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. So I'm going to talk about 5S for a minute. So what is 5S? 5S is a quality program that started with TPS, and TPS is the Toyota Production System. It's a quality program started by Toyota back in the 1950s. And the objective of the program is to find and eliminate waste, increase productivity and reduce costs, and create a safer work environment for our employees. A few things as to why 5S. Until we have a clean and organized workplace, having consistent standards and results at locations are difficult. A messy, cluttered workspace can lead to mistakes, slowdown in productivity, and accidents, and that all negatively affect employees' lives and interrupt operations. By having a systematically organized facility, a company can increase the likelihood that work will occur exactly as it should. So why 5S? Number one, getting your dealerships organized, becoming more profitable, more efficient, and creating a safer work environment for our employees. This is one example of hundreds of examples of Imperial applying 5S. So the picture to the left is a dealership down in Central Florida before it was converted to Imperial. So a lot of things that I'll point out here of the Imperial program. Just one, the organization. If you look to the right, all of our bins have bin toppers on top, so it eliminates what we see to the left of all the clutter. It's just a cleaner, more organized work environment. So the first thing we go through with the dealership personnel, we go through the dealership and working with them, identifying obsolete items, SKUs in the shop. Basically stuff that has been sold at some point in time that has no value to the dealership. In this particular case, there were 162 SKUs out of a little less than 1,000 that had no value to the dealership. It's something they will never use again. This generated a credit for this dealership of $2,400. But one of the biggest aspects of 5S, as we were going through the drawers to identify what could be removed and working with the shop foreman there, he had found one product, and it literally took him 5 minutes to go through and see where a duplicate product was. So there's a lot of time wasted in dealerships when you have clutter like to the left of mechanics going and looking for products. So our objective is to make it a lot simpler and a lot faster for the technicians to be able to find the product they're looking for. Another example of 5S, this is a first aid cabinet in one of the dealerships that we went into, and part of our process is we do an assessment, a financial assessment. We also do a shop assessment, and we identify things like this. So in this particular dealership, their first aid cabinet contains 7 pharmaceuticals, very well-stocked first aid kit. With that, here's my problem with that. Most safety consultants to the auto dealer world recommend getting the pharmaceuticals out of the dealership, out of free access for the employees. So why is that? Number one, you're creating liability for yourself if you're dispensing pharmaceuticals. So that's the first thing. Second, OSHA does not require any of this. There is a short list of items that OSHA requires, and that is what most consultants recommend, and that's what I recommend. So in addition to meeting OSHA standards, you can eliminate a lot of costs by not having pharmaceuticals in your dealership. If you want to purchase those types of items, yes, we distribute them, but I simply do not recommend them in a first aid kit in a dealership. So we talked about clean, labeling, and organizing your shop for maximum efficiency. So then it's the sustain process. So how do we sustain the process? After we clean, label, and organize with our ScanTel program, we train whoever will be placing the order at the dealership. The number one means for getting orders from dealerships today is our mobile app. It's just extremely simple to use. You download the app. It has a scanner built in. You walk up to the bins or the wheel weight area. You scan what you need. Again, the average order is 10 line items. Takes less than 5 minutes to scan, and you transmit with the mobile app. You transmit the order. It's all instantaneously. Pick, pack, and ship same day if the order is placed before 3 p.m., and then it shows up from Federal Express either the next day or second day. For those that don't want to use a mobile app, we have a scanner, and then we have a lot of customers that actually build my list on the web and simply order from the web. And part of the sustain process is our dedicated account advisor that just keeps everything together. Again, there is one dedicated account advisor. She's responsible. She's a single point of contact for the individual dealership. Really key to making the program successful. When the box comes in from Federal Express or UPS, you open the box up, you look inside, you get the Imperial box. The Imperial box has a license plate on it. The license plate matches the bin location. Actually, the barcode on the box matches the barcode inside the bin. So the whole thought process behind that, again, is lean process improvement, 5S, and this part just simply making it very easy to put the product away. So testimonial, a few testimonials. This one here, very happy with the Imperial program, and it has been super easy to manage. Actually, it's stupid easy. This is a group that we rolled out last year down in Florida. Another testimonial, previous supply sales reps seem to always show up at the worst time of the day, but with Imperial, I'm able to place my orders on my own time schedule. And last one we have here, same dealer group. My orders arrive on time with Imperial, and I just finished putting away my last order, and it was cake with your put-away process and barcodes. So, again, very simple process, and we save a lot of money in that process. So, ultimately, what does Imperial represent? We represent change management. And I've got a quote from one of my friends and customers, Brian Marshall. And when I first started working with him, he said everyone in his group wants to make more money, but no one wants to change anything. And that's very true. But as leaders, the leaders we have on this call, John Maxwell has got a nice quote that I like to share. Most people don't like change, that's a fact. Yet one of the most important responsibilities of leaders is to continually improve their organization. As a leader, you must train yourself to embrace change, to desire it, and to make a way for it. Effective leaders are not only willing to change, but they become change agents. And that's essentially what Imperial is. We help customers with change, and we've got a long history of helping customers manage through this change and create significant impact with cost savings and process improvement at dealerships. So assessment offer, I call this free consulting. Imperial on our dime go in, we do a supplier-based assessment. We'll do the forensic analysis and create a business case. And from the business case, really our clients to determine whether this is a fit for their organization or not a fit for their organization. So your benefits, we'll create a business case and show you how you can cut supply expense from 20 to 45%. This includes significant direct cost of goods savings on either the exact same products or like products. The indirect savings of getting the route salesperson out of the equation, lean process improvement, free cabinetry program. The Imperial program is very easy. Imperial does all the setup work. The program is free to test and free to implement. Again, contact me to get started with the process. So at this point in time, we will take questions.
All right. Thank you, Randy. And we're going to start some Q&A times now. And Doug, I invite you to open up your webcam. And anyone can ask questions right there on the left side of the screen. You can type in something in that small box in the bottom, and we'll forward this on to Randy and possibly Doug. So here's the first question. Who at the dealership generally places the Imperial orders?
Great question. So it's almost 50-50, the person that places the order from Imperial. Half the time it's on the service side and half the time it's on the parts side. Typically speaking, the service side gets the greatest impact from the savings, and in many cases, to make everyone a winner in this process, with the significant savings that we represent, a lot of organizations will actually allow the parts department to have an upcharge on the Imperial product so that they have a win in the process, so they're getting compensated for managing the process. So typically speaking, it's about 50-50. We'll have the service side do it. In many cases, it will default to a shop foreman to manage the ordering process, but it's really up to each individual dealership whether the ordering process comes from service or comes from parts. I've got another.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Randy.
No, you go ahead.
I just wanted to encourage people to ask questions via the Q&A box, the left side of the screen, the lower left. There's a small frame there to type something in. And Randy, there are some questions that have arrived here on the Q&A side. You can glance at those in the presenter area. But let me ask this additional one here. How long does the Imperial setup process take?
Great question. Most often that's driven by the customer. My goal is when we have an inquiry and someone's ready to meet with one of our regional sales managers to get a detailed review of the Imperial program, I like to have those meetings take place within 10 days, and most of the time that can take place. And if the dealership is motivated to go through the process, the shop review can take place then. We gather the invoices for the forensic analysis. That process is a very detailed process, line item by line item. We literally look at thousands of line items every year. That process will take about 3 weeks to do a thorough forensic analysis. Then we come back and present a business case and the results. Once that's done, if the customer decides to move forward with the program, our field service takes about 3 weeks to get set up. So from beginning to end, it can be as little as 6 weeks. A great deal of that time is dictated by the dealership and how fast they want to move. I've got
let me jump in with a question here that's not on the screen. But your before and after picture of the bins before and the bins after was pretty compelling. You guys can clean up a lot of mess in a dealership and can standardize and simplify that. When you go in and do a program like this, do you provide the bins and do you haul away the old bins, or how does that work?
So we do not haul away the old bins. There's a few different ways that they're disposed of. It's indifferent to Imperial what you do with them. Some people will put it in the recycle bins and be done with it. Others will let the technicians take it home. Really, it's entirely up to the dealerships. Now, as far as costs go, most dealerships have a minimum amount of steel equipment. We will replace that on our dime. If it's a significant number, what we typically do is sign an agreement that you utilize Imperial for X amount of time, and generally it's a year or less, then the steel equipment belongs to you. So, get some skin in the game from the dealership if they want to move in our direction. So that's really two different options. Most dealerships that I go into will require less than $1,000 investment on Imperial's part for steel, and we'll cover that cost. In the event that it's a significant amount, we just ask the customer to sign an agreement that they will utilize us long enough for us to recover our cost.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question we have.
Yeah, we're getting a nice stream of questions from the group. They're on the right frame, and you can select, Randy, whichever ones you wanted to tackle.
I'm going to just go down the list because they all look like excellent questions. So the first one is, what is the estimated time per week for ordering and putting away product? Beautiful question. So the average order is 10 line items. And everyone I talk to pull up the mobile app and scan and transmit an order for 10 line items, it really shouldn't take you more than 5 or 10 minutes. You might have to walk out to the wheel weight area to scan the wheel weights and then back in behind the counter to scan the disposable gloves. But really, the front-end ordering process shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. And then the stocking process, again, the product comes in with a bin location. Typically speaking, the counter guys put this stuff away. They're putting the OE product away, so putting the Imperial product away is not a challenge for them. And again, 10 line items might take 10 or 15 minutes to stock the product. So the next question here, can I speak to vending and the pros and cons versus VMI or CMI? Great question. So vending. There's some white papers out on vending for a car dealership. First of all, if you have less than 10 technicians in the car dealership, vending does not make any sense. I'm neutral on vending. The primary objective of vending is to control costs and provide easy access to the technicians. Basically, to keep the technicians out on the shop floor, getting products from a vending machine versus going and waiting in line at the parts counter. But there is a cost associated with vending. With Imperial, as long as you're utilizing the Imperial program for your core products, that will cover the monthly cost of having the vending installed. But I'm completely neutral on vending. A dealer that wants to go in that direction, we will work with them on that. A lot of pros and cons to vending. There's probably less than 1% of the car dealerships in the United States actually utilize vending machines for shop supplies at this point in time. VMI versus CMI, you know what? I think the entire presentation we just looked at talks about the issues associated with VMI. Bottom line is the Imperial program represents a new way of doing business. It is a methodology that is in tune with the environment that we live in now. I'll give you Tesla, for instance. Tesla embraced our program quickly, and they absolutely love our program. The technicians at Tesla and the parts and service guys are generally technology savvy. Not that it takes much technology at all. I've got guys that are older than I am that have no problem with the mobile app and love the program. But technology savvy people, they much prefer to deal with our mobile app than dealing with a route salesperson coming in. So there's a lot of additional costs associated with VMI. CMI, the biggest challenge is we face, or people just simply don't want to do it, or say they don't have time to do it. What I've seen in doing this for almost 25 years now, it's a lot faster to order and get product from Imperial than it is to do with the route salesperson. So I'm a little bit biased in this area, but if you look at the results, business case results, return on investment, those items, it's really not a big argument to me there. How easy is it to use the scanner program? Are parts runners needed? No, parts runners are not needed. The scanner program is a turnkey operation. We call it ScanTel when we come in and identify the obsolete inventory. And one of the big things that we do, if you look at the first pictures, the before and after, it was kind of a cluster before Imperial. It was highly unorganized. And mechanics literally there's hours every week mechanics spend looking for parts. So just in that area alone, the time savings associated with having it organized and efficient, we save a lot more time than they would invest in the ordering process. Where do you find a list of offered products? We distribute 1.7 million products, and the easiest way to get a line card is simply to go online at imperialsupplies.com. And essentially what we distribute is all the shop supply items in the shop, everything from disposable gloves to wheel weights and everything in between, 1.7 million industrial supply items. We are a specialty division of Grainger, as is Zorro. We are specially low-cost division of Grainger. And with our low-cost model, working with our dedicated account advisors, there's pretty much you can get everything in the Grainger catalog through Imperial at a lower cost point than what you can get it from Grainger. We just simply, as a parent company, we just have a different business model for distributing products. Great question down here. I assume you have a full line of chemicals equal or similar to Worth for items like brake cleaner, RTV white lithium grease. Worth is a good supplier. They are one of our largest competitors. But to answer the question, I'm going to answer this question in two parts. First of all, there's nothing that Worth distributes that I can't have either the exact same product or a very similar product. But I'm glad somebody brought up brake cleaner. So my objective in working with a customer is helping you build the best supply channel for shop supplies. And Imperial is a great fit for about 90% of that. There are areas where we're not a great fit. Imperial, our distribution model does not work well with bulk. And the reason our distribution model does not work well with bulk is that there's a lot of freight associated with moving 55-gallon drums of brake clean. So what I typically do is try to work with the customer to identify a local supplier that does not charge freight for the distribution of a drum of brake clean. With that, if they're currently getting brake clean from Worth, I can sell it at the same cost point as Worth sells it. But again, if I'm running a shop, I'm not going to pay a $150 premium for Imperial's drum of brake clean or Worth's drum of brake clean when I can get it from a local supplier on bulk chemicals, not only bulk chemicals for brake clean, but other chemicals at a reduced cost. But In the event that someone's serious about consolidating and they do not want to deal with multiple suppliers, we're absolutely competitive with any products, including bulk products with Worth. Oh, great question here. Does the dealership pay shipping charges on orders? So Doug's a shrewd negotiator, so he's negotiated $100 freight terms for all of his clients. So I'll talk about freight for a minute. So when you're looking at freight, no one's making any money off the freight. Imperial's not making money off the freight. Doug's not making money off the freight. And you're not making any money off the freight. The freight company's making the money. So my objective is that my customers do not pay any freight. So how do we accomplish that objective? Right on the scanner, as you're scanning, it shows you the dollar amount of the order. I don't have any customers that shouldn't be able to meet the $100 minimum in order to get free freight. So when I look at analytics of two things. When I look at analytics of a customer, my goal is to have my customers pay zero freight. And that's part of the dedicated account advisor's job also, is to monitor the orders. And if we get orders coming in that are less than 100, for instance, if Nicole gets an order, shows an order, your dealership placed a $90 order, she's going to reach out to the dealership and say, hey, your order's at $90. I see you haven't purchased this. We're going to help them get to the $100 minimum, so there's zero freight. You can order $5 worth of product and we'll ship it, but you're going to pay more in freight than you will on that $5 product. Makes no sense from a supply channel standpoint for anyone. So our objective is to get you to that minimum that any car dealership shouldn't have any problems getting to that. And I believe that's the last question that we have in the question and answer section.
Well, that's a good thing because I've got a whole bunch of comments to make.
Go
ahead and wrap up, Randy, and I got some editorial comments I want to make in this category, if you will.
Very good. So, Doug, I appreciate the opportunity to have Imperial on today. Imperial is a very unique company. We've been in business since 1958. Our founder started out back in 58 with our high-touch model without physical presence. If you're looking to have a more efficient dealership and reduce your cost, I don't think there's a better way to get started than working with Imperial. You have my contact information down here, and I'll be delighted to hear from you guys. All right, Doug.
Randy, outstanding presentation, and again, I can't thank you enough for making the time today. Let me just give you a little bit of benefit of some of the experience I've had. Yeah, I've been in supply chain purchasing and logistics since 1980, and although I know I don't look that old, but one of the things when we got into the automotive space years ago, we were trying to learn this back in 2000, about 21 years ago. And one of the things that we did was walk around the shops because we were trying to understand what dealers buy. And most of you know that I'm a Marine by background, and the Marine Corps is pretty crazy about having everything orderly and clean and organized and neat. And when I walked into some of those shops, I just wanted to flip those bins upside down because it was such a mess. And if a lot of you folks that are on the line today get an opportunity, I'd like to challenge you to walk out into your shop. Go out and look where the wheel lights are, look where the shop supplies are, and just look at either how well organized it is or how messy and disorganized it might be. Run your fingers across the product bin. If your finger comes up with dust, you know you've been over inventory. If it comes up with a lot of dust, you know you've got a good opportunity to sell that stuff back to Imperial. So that's one thing. Let me talk about delivered pricing. For any supply item that you buy, whether it's office supplies, shop supplies, detail, janitorial, or whatever, we try to get delivered pricing so that we eliminate the opportunity for freight charges to be added on. What Randy is suggesting here is very reasonable. Get $100 minimum order in and you're not going to see a freight bill. All of you know that fuel costs have increased about 44%, and it's rising even beyond that. We're going to see more and more fuel surcharges. So again, delivered price on supplies makes absolute sense. Just all you got to do is achieve the minimums, and we can eliminate all of that. Let's talk about supplier proliferation. When we go into dealerships, we will see typically 6 to 10 vendors that are providing shop supplies. And it could be shop supply companies, some that specialize in wheel weights, some that may be generic like Imperial. But a lot of companies, or a lot of dealers buy shop supplies through auto parts companies as well. O'Reilly, Napa, that's a bad idea. Those prices tend to be pretty high. And the reality is you don't need all those suppliers. You can go with one supplier, be it Imperial, be it ABC company or XYZ, but you don't need multiple suppliers. Now, Randy was transparent enough to tell you on the chemical side, maybe they can't be all things to all people. If you want a sole source, then buy everything from one supplier, be it Worth or Imperial or Worth or whoever you work with. But it might make sense to dual source in some of those cases, as Randy suggested, and maybe get those chemicals locally. But you don't need 6 vendors in shop supplies, and you don't need 6 vendors in office supplies and janitorial. And the reason that happens is that there's a tactical mindset on the part of the parts managers or buyers. They're trying to do the right thing by going out and buying the cheapest widget at any given time. But what they're doing in the process is adding to that supply base and making your business more complicated than it has to be. So I would encourage all of you today to think about a programmatic approach. One vendor in shop supplies. And if XYZ company comes up with, cheaper gloves next week, well, then talk to Randy and see if maybe you can get your glove price down. But don't bring in another new supplier, because that's adding back office costs to manage additional suppliers. It's adding additional checks that you have to cut. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. So try to stay with a single source supplier to the extent that you can. And my last comment, so what I'm saying there is there's a tactical approach to purchasing. God bless the employees. They're trying to do the right thing, but the strategic approach is better. A simpler supplier base, fewer checks to cut, fewer invoices to approve. And lastly, to Randy's comment on leadership, in the final analysis, a leader's job is to simplify the complex. In shop supplies and auto parts and office supplies, there are probably 50 to 60,000 part numbers or SKUs, stock keeping units that a dealership can use. Your job is not to get the best price on every one of those stock keeping units, but have a good program in place for all of those categories and keep it simple. So as leaders, Randy talked about the resistance to change. That's the biggest obstacles that we see in strategic source is some folks just don't want to simplify the complex. They want to complicate the simple. And that, when they do that, that's costing you a lot of money. So hopefully these editorial comments have helped. Again, we have a large degree of respect for Imperial. We think they're the best out there. We think they've got a great program, and I'd encourage you to take a look at them. We'd be happy to help you if you're a client, and if you're not a client, we'd be happy to talk to you about your expenses in general. So, Randy, great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Back to you, Doug, and look forward to working with some of these guests today.
Okay. So let's kind of wrap it up. We're about 5 minutes to the hour. Hopefully, we've got a great amount of attendance today, and I think this just reinforces the comments that I made early on that a lot of dealers are worried about preserving cash and reducing costs right now. Now is the time to get focused like a laser on 2022. If you're interested in a copy of this webinar today that Randy has put together, I know I'm going to steal some ideas from you, Randy, because you got some good stuff in there. Just shoot us an email.
Thanks a lot, Doug. I've sold a few from you.
Okay. Shoot us an email at sales@strategicsource.com or get a hold of Chris Austin, 612-386-3898. He can get you any of the material. If you're not a client of ours today, we'd like you to be. We'd like to tell you what we can do for you, and we'd be happy to give you an overview or a quick demo. Finally, we will have a copy of this recorded webinar on our website with all the other previous ones. So if you haven't been to our website, please do that. There are a boatload of ideas out there that will help you preserve cash and cut costs in 2022. Thank you so much for attending today. I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Dave has got a couple of poll questions, and we'll turn it over to him. But Randy, again, great job.
Doug, great participation. I appreciate all the guests logging in today, and thank you for the opportunity to present.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Doug, and everyone who attended today. There is a post-session survey that's up on the screen. We'd love to get your feedback on the last hour spent. We want it to be time well spent, and this helps us with our future webinars. So there you have it, everyone. And we look forward to you joining us on future webinars with Strategic Source. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.